everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Capricorn Solstice, which is coming up on the 21st of December. It's at 1:21 a.m. Pacific and 9:21 a.m. UK time, and I'll be showing that chart in a moment. And as we know, the solstices and equinoxes are very important, and they act as a kind of backdrop, the first layer of paint on the canvas, as it were, for the 3 months to come. So they set the tone, and even ancient peoples were very aware of these, very tuned into these. They held ceremonies at this time because they were aware that the veils were thinner. Our ability to get more high-level information is easier at these times, and we're increasing in our psychic sensitivity all the time, as many of you are aware and feeling. So let us take a look at the chart. It's a very interesting one. Okay, so here we have, I've set this chart for London, England, where I live. And at the Capricorn solstice, of course, this is the time when the sun enters Capricorn, 0 of Capricorn. And Capricorn energy is really about our mastery, our discipline. It's an energy that wants to build for the long term. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the ingredients of this Capricorn solstice is. And this is obviously very important because we are just a week or so away from entering 2025, which I think is going to be an incredibly eventful, dynamic, and historic year. Enormously important. I'm going to be doing a month-by-month analysis of it next week with my good friend and colleague, Kathy Rose, as we did last year. And I'm also, in the next couple of weeks, going to be sharing some of the big themes that I think are going to be coming forward in 2025. And there are a lot of them, So this is the setup, if you like. Now, what's interesting, I mean, there's so many interesting things here, but we have a T-square between the sun at 0 of Capricorn and the nodal axis at 2 degrees 03 of Aries and 203 of Libra. It's a T-square. So all of these points are on the world axis. The world axis is 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, to 2 degrees either side. And yes, this is 2 degrees and 3 minutes, but I'll allow that. I'll allow the 3 minutes over. And so obviously every time we have an equinox or a solstice, the sun is entering a cardinal sign. But here it's picking up the T-square to the nodal axis. Now, again, the sun, because it obviously moves 1 degree a day around the zodiac, it does that fairly frequently, but not at the solstice, because all of these points are on the world axis. So what that means is this is really saying this is another very significant choice point for humanity. Whenever the sun squares the nodal axis, it's an important choice point. And what are the choices? Well, as I've talked a great deal, that you're either living in love or you're living in fear. And really, to emphasize that, this end of the nodal axis, the North Node, which is our soul's path of, it's our collective soul's path of destiny at this time, is in Aries. So that is about our sovereignty, our independence. It's also conjunct Neptune here. So this is our spiritual sovereignty, being a spiritual warrior, if you like, our spiritual sovereignty. Whereas the South Node, which is what we're moving away from, is in Libra. So that is any kind of being a people pleaser, compromising our own needs, not being quite so authentic. I'm talking about the shadow side of Libra here, and not rocking the boat, going along with the majority, as it were, not speaking out. Whereas Aries is very direct and blunt and speaks out, and very much stands in its individuality. So this is the split, and we are being encouraged, because it's the North Node here in Aries conjunct Neptune, is to stand as the spiritual warrior, stand in our sovereignty. The North Node is also conjunct Manway, very, very tightly within 6 minutes. Manway, 2 degrees 09 of Aries. Manway is the highest intelligence in the universe, part of the creation myth, as I've often talked about, where he and his wife Vada really created the whole universe. So the fact he is also, I'd allow that being on the world axis and conjunct the North Node and at the Capricorn Solstice, is really saying this is a major initiation point, a major new beginning. And one of the big, big themes of Manway is the triumph of light over dark, the triumph of light over dark. So I see this, just even that T-square that I've talked about, as a further splitting of the timelines. And I mean that dimensionally. You know, you living in fear, you living in love. Are you standing in your authenticity and your sovereignty, or are you just not rocking the boat, going along with the crowd? This could not be more important in terms of the choices we are making entering 2025. And I'm going to be talking more about that as we go through. So the fact that Manway has a 288-year orbit, that becomes very significant because it obviously, the North Node does not come very frequently to that point, only around about every, it would be about every 19 years or so. Also, here we have Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Now we know that Pluto entered or re-entered Aquarius for the final time in its cycle on the 19th of November, and it will stay there till January 2044. But the fact it's at 0 of Aries is a very important degree at this Capricorn solstice. Now, I think it's been very interesting that since Pluto, well, it was literally a few days away from a US Congress, series of congressional hearings on UFOs, because Aquarius is very related to the out there, the galactic beings, the foreigners, the mavericks. You know, we are galactic beings too, don't forget. I think that is very interesting. And since the 19th of November, how many UFO sightings have there been across the world? Quite a lot in America, but not exclusively. I think the whole shift into reconnecting to our galactic heritage is a huge theme that this Capricorn solstice is setting up very clearly. Now, as many of you know, in December, on the Capricorn solstice back in 2020, 21st of December 2020, we had what was called the Great Conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And that set up round about another 140 to 150 year cycle of repeating 20-year conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn in air signs. Remember, Aquarius isn't a water sign, it's an air sign. And so Jupiter-Saturn conjunction set up the zeitgeist for the next 140, 150 years. And that is being reactivated right now by Pluto being exactly at that degree that was already set up in December at the Capricorn solstice, December 2020. So what are some of the themes? Well, I talked about this ad infinitum at the time, as did all the other astrologers, but their themes around freedom, human rights, civil rights, power beginning to shift to the people, revolution, technological innovation, acceleration of AI, galactic connections, paradigm shattering times overall. So many new discoveries and solutions. But, you know, I'll talk much more about that as we go through the coming months and years. But nevertheless, that's being very highlighted at this Capricorn solstice. We also have a very powerful T-square here, because we have the ongoing square between Jupiter, 14 of Gemini, and Saturn at 13 of Pisces. Saturn is exact to the degree opposing the moon, 13 of Virgo, and Jupiter is squaring the moon. So it's a mutable T-square. And I've talked already, in fact, I've got a whole separate video on the Jupiter-Saturn square. And in that video, I was really talking about it personally for you. But here, if we're looking at it in a global sense, this is very interesting because, first of all, the moon in Virgo, very, very often Virgo is related to health. It's related to your gut. It's related to your overall physical health and tiny things that can interfere with health, bacteria, parasites, that kind of thing. It is conjunct a dwarf planet called Orcus. Orcus is the Etruscan god who punishes those who violate sacred law, divine law. He takes them down to the underworld and makes them see the error of their ways, makes them see the truth, and punishes them. And this is all around the area of health. So I think this is very interesting. And Jupiter is enlarging whatever this is about. It's blowing it up because Jupiter is expanding all the facts, the information. In Gemini, maybe on social media too, that is coming out at this time. And also Saturn in Pisces. Pisces is to do with the blood and the immune system as well. And this is acting as a kind of reality check. And it's conjunct Nessus at 17 of Cancer. Nessus is a centaur. I've talked about before, one of the big themes of Nessus is the buck stops here. The myth, which I've discussed before, is around poisoning and gaslighting and that kind of thing. But it's the buck stops here. And Saturn is acting as a reality check to whatever is emerging at this time. Saturn opposing the moon can be a little bit sobering in this reality check. Oh my goodness, are those the facts? So this is going to be a very interesting period in time, I think, to see what emerges. Because this Saturn-Jupiter square is the first testing point for the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction I've just talked about at the Capricorn Solstice, 21st of December, 2020. Now, what was happening around that time? Well, that was a very interesting time, as you may remember, because that was when the first vaccines were being launched. That exact month, they were being launched then. And then we had the first exact square between Saturn and Jupiter, and that was on the 19th of August. That was just a few days away from a WHO very important meeting. They convened and declared that another virus, monkeypox, was an international health concern. That was within a few days of that first exact square between Saturn and Jupiter. So we have an interesting theme building here. Now that all fizzled out. The next exact square is within 3 days of this solstice on Christmas Eve, 24th of December. It'll be very interesting to see what's emerging at this time. It's not far away at all. And the final square doesn't happen until June next year. So whatever is emerging as a theme at this time around the issue that was set up at December 2020, that is one of the big themes for sure. But I've discussed other themes in previous videos and in that separate video about Saturn Jupiter that I'll put below. So fascinating to see what will be emerging at this time. The other thing to say is that Jupiter is very much about, Virgo is very much about discernment. This Jupiter is about truth, it's about the law, and Jupiter is about discernment, being very particular about the detail and the facts that we are sifting as correct and those that we don't believe are correct. So we are going to be using our intuition, but also using our mental faculties here, in that Gemini and Virgo are both ruled by Mercury, to really discern what's true and what's not around all of this. Truth is a big issue here. Truth is a big issue because Jupiter is a strong part of this, this whole Capricorn solstice. It is also opposing Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, which Jupiter rules, which is also all about truth and the law. In addition to that, we have Uranus, another planet to do with truth. These are the two planets linked to truth. And Uranus is in this very obsessive quindecile, spelt quindecile, to Mercury, 165-degree aspect. You've got to use a 2-degree, very tight orb with that. This is an aspect of obsession, upheaval, upset, won't leave the truth alone, got to dig for the truth, got to get to the bottom, very obsessive. So you have these two planets linked to the truth that are really digging into this Mercury in Sagittarius, also linked to truth and the law. Really, really fascinating here. We also have Mars opposing Pluto. We had this on the 3rd of November, initially in this cycle. The way that this is like brute force. It's an opposition, so we can feel a strong sense of polarization, or people with rage coming at us. And I think the way this, because it was angular, that opposition in the US at the time by astrocartography, and the way that manifested, I think, was very much the extreme polarization and the very intense heightened feelings that were running in the US just 2 days before the US election. This is going to be exact again on the 3rd of January, and then it's going to be exact again on the 26th of April. So I never know the events, but this is being set up already for the exact opposition on the 3rd of January 2025. So there's some kind of polarization, separation, rage, brute force. This can be a brute force in the world. It can be, some very explosive events or warlike events. Mars is god of war. These are both planets linked to power. We'll have to see what emerges, but it's very, very strong indeed. The Sun is also conjunct a dwarf planet called Ixion at 5 degrees of Capricorn. Ixion is also about kind of primal rage. You'll remember from the myth that he murdered his father-in-law without any compunction or remorse. He felt nothing about murdering. That was just fine. And he was then eventually spun off because he also tried to rape Zeus's wife, who was about to forgive him. He was spun off on a burning wheel into eternity. But there's a very different side to Ixion, a very positive side, which is you just want to step out of the normal social mores, the mainstream, and find a simple road to joy. Go your own authentic individual way and find a simple road to joy. And this is also part of this Capricorn solstice with a very clear message. The other thing which I think is beautiful here and really important is that there is a trine between Jupiter at 14 of Gemini and Venus at 16 of Aquarius and Chariklo, beautiful Chariklo at 14 of Aquarius. So this is a very tight trine. So Jupiter is enlarging this energy. Venus is always love, of course, and this is a very beneficial aspect that can bring, if you either have Venus or Jupiter in these positions in your chart by transit, if it's moving through your important areas of your chart, you can experience some success or abundance or recognition at this time. But it's very interesting, Venus in Aquarius. I see this not just as a kind of one-to-one love. I see it almost as a more universal love because it's in Aquarius. And there's another reason for that too, which I'll come to in a moment. Chariklo, beautiful Chariklo. Chariklo, you'll remember, in myth is the wife of Chiron. She is the sole midwife that is present when there are transitions of life to death, but also in shifts of consciousness. She holds sacred space simply by her state of being. She's incredibly healing energy in that state of being. To me, she's very related to the Buddhist eternal, that permanent ground of being that is silent, that we all have within us, that we can drop into at any moment. That permanent, silent ground of being. It's beautiful. It's deep. It's healing. It's loving. It's beautiful. So here we have an incredibly expansive, which I think 2025 will be big time, loving, universal, healing, just warmth, just being able to sit there and hold that feeling of healing sacred space almost for the world. It's universal. And the reason I say it's universal as well, not just the fact it's in Aquarius, 15 degrees of the fixed signs is also what I consider to be on the world axis. And this is more advanced astrology, but for astrologers, because it is 45 degrees from 0 of the cardinals, 0 of Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, 45 degrees is, in every case, 15 degrees of the fixed signs. I know I'll be losing some people here, but for astrologers, just know this because it's important. Because what that is doing, and you've got to use a tight orb of 2 degrees, what that is doing is really highlighting this Venus-Chariklo conjunction and throwing it onto the public stage as well. We are going to be healing with love. And that is going to be a very expansive love, very high level love. And I'm going to be talking about this much more in themes for 2025, but your focus entering 2025, and it's being set up at this Capricorn solstice, which lasts for 3 months. Your focus, where you put your attention, could not be more important. Which end of the nodal axis are you going to focus on? Because whatever it is, it's going to be amplified enormously in 2025 because we have a further splitting of the timelines dimensionally. I hope I'm making sense here, but it's really, really important. So, we have a lot here. So I'm just going to stop sharing here, but 2025 is going to be such an enormous year. And I often think of Gandhi saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And yes, absolutely. And so often in my videos, I've talked about living from the inside out, not the outside in, and dominating your days with the emotion you choose. Do you choose love? Do you choose joy, gratitude, peace, etc.? And dominating your day with that. But it's actually more than all of those things, because as we are entering this, we are already in the chrysalis process of this massive metamorphosis that we're going through as humanity. It is, and it's absolutely not an external savior coming to save us. Humanity is doing this. It's a combination of the time capsule, this this inner acorn that's being activated by the cosmic energies that is creating this huge transformation for humanity. So it's the cosmic energies. It's not whoever's voted into power or not. It's the cosmic energies, the high frequency light, because of the convergence of all of the different timelines, very large and very small, that I've talked about in my Metamorphosis for Humanity, my conversation with Richard Rudd about the new human. It's the convergence of all of those timelines into now, the high frequency light coming in to us, that we in our every cell of our body as physical human beings are transmuting in every moment. And if we are living in love, joy, gratitude, compassion, appreciation, we are more able to transmute that high frequency light and embody it. So we are moving more quickly towards the light body. Nobody forces you in either direction. It's your frequency that determines this. And so this is really important, I feel, for us to get as humanity, because this is down to each of us. Nobody can do it for you. No leader can do it for you. No leader's coming to save us one way. There may be some helpful people who can accelerate it a little, but this is the mass of humanity that is doing this, interacting with cosmic energy right now. So I really want to say that, and that's why I don't get into the political fray very much, because this is so much bigger. What we're going through is so much bigger and better than that. But we know we can change the future with our consciousness. There is 10 tons of evidence out there for that you will be very aware of. Through our meditations, through our frequency, we change the future by our consciousness. Even in listening to this video now, you may have shifted your consciousness a notch or two. And me in speaking it, I know I have, because I'm excited by this. So we change tomorrow. We move it up a notch or two, a degree or two. We, with our consciousness, change our future. And individually and collectively, we have a big spiritual responsibility to do that. So step into your future as if it is already here, and live it in every moment as if it is already here for you. So very exciting time, I think, on Earth. 2025 is going to be an incredibly, as I say, dynamic, eventful, expansive, and historic year. Possibly the biggest we've ever lived, actually, so far in our lifetimes. So, but lots more of that to come. But in the meantime, have a wonderful Capricorn Solstice, and I hope this has really helped you. Don't forget to meditate. The day before is particularly strong. Rory Duff has taught us well that it's the day before the solstices and equinoxes where the Earth's energy lines come into harmony most strongly. And just a quick update on Rory for those of you who know him and his work. I don't have a lot of details. I'm not in direct contact with the family. But from what I understand, he's, with all of our healing that we've been sending, he has kind of pulled back from the brink, as it were, pulled back from the extreme danger zone that I think he was in. Things are a bit touch and go for him. So if I get any more updates, I will update you as we go. I think he's got quite a time of recovery ahead of him, but we just keep sending him our love and our healing. God bless, and I will probably be putting out another video before Christmas, but if any of you celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas with family and friends. God bless. Bye for now.